Struggling CEO saves pregnant girl from despair. Her incredible secret will leave you speechless. Michael stared blankly at the spreadsheets cluttering his desk, numbers swirling like a storm in his mind. His startup, once a beacon of innovation, now flickered dimly like a dying bulb. Every line item breathed disappointment, and the weight of his family's expectations crushed him from every side. What was once vibrant ambition felt like an anchor dragging him deeper into despair. Each unpaid bill and anxious employee added to the knot in his stomach. Was he failing them all? He barely registered the phone ringing, the critical voice on the other end piercing through his dreary thoughts, warning of the impending collapse. As he wrestled with a sinking feeling of dread, the mid-October chill crept in, cold and unwelcome against his skin. It's as if the season was mocking his life. He needed a distraction, a way to escape the inevitability of his failures, if only for a moment. So, he stepped outside, wrapping his coat tighter around his shoulders. The night was eerily quiet, the city wrapped in an unforgiving darkness, but as he walked towards the bus station, he spotted her, a young girl, no older than 19, sitting alone on a bench, her round belly a stark contrast to the desolation surrounding her. Michael hesitated for a moment, torn between normalcy and a sudden desire to approach her. He had his own battles, but something in her weary eyes pulled him in. He approached, driven by an instinct he couldn't name. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice unexpectedly gentle among the biting cold. Her name was Sarah, and as she shared her story, Michael felt a stabbing urgency, a family disowning her, friends fading away. Faded plans and lost dreams rolled off her like shadows, the weight of her pregnancy adding to her struggles. For a brief moment, he connected with her despair. She had given up everything that was expected of her, and now faced abandonment. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Something stirred in him. There was a flicker of determination. He recognized his past self, the same passion that had once fueled his entrepreneurial dreams. He spoke passionately about his journey, his failures, his aspirations. He wanted her to see that fight in her too. He saw an ember of talent in her, a raw, unrefined ability with architecture that could change perceptions. They exchanged ideas under the harsh glow of streetlights, possibility shimmering between them, yet, just as Michael felt a surge of hope, Sarah's past resurfaced. A frantic phone call revealed her family's influence, their desire to pull her back into conformity. The storm inside him raged. Could he genuinely help her as his own life unraveled? Would he jeopardize a fragile alliance for the hope of saving his drowning business? Shadows loomed over their dream, his desperation mingling with hers. The clock ticked ominously as they stood at the precipice of ruin or revival. What future awaited them if the past clawed into their present? Would he watch her return to a gilded cage, or embrace a risk that might crush them both? The question gnawed at him: could resilience triumph over overwhelming power, or would fear shatter their fragile bond? Michael's heart pounded as he walked away from Sarah, the cold air sinking into his bones. Each step felt heavier as the weight of their conversation pressed down on him. He had ignited a spark in her, but would it be enough? The moment he returned to his office would seal the fate of his own sinking ship. Alone in the dim light of his office, thoughts raced through his mind. Should he surrender to the fear that had plagued him for months? Or could he take the bold leap that might change everything, not just for himself but for Sarah too? Struggling with the ghosts of expectation and responsibility, he realized he had to make a choice. He could either continue to drown in his failures, or he could take action. Driven by a newfound clarity, he reminded himself of the brilliant ideas he and Sarah had exchanged. Architectural designs that broke barriers, ideas that defied the confines of his corporate world. What if they could transform her raw talent into a legitimate project? Not only for her growth but as a new direction for his floundering startup. After a restless night filled with anticipation and sleepless anxiety, Michael began writing up a proposal. His mind raced with possibilities, a collaboration that fused their creativity and his business acumen. He envisioned it clearly, the designs of innovative shelters that could serve not just residents but communities, promoting sustainable living. As dawn broke and the first rays of light filtered through the curtains, illuminating his cluttered desk, something shifted within him. This was no longer just about saving his company, it was about creating something greater, turning despair into a beacon of hope. The phone rang again, snapping him back to reality. It was Jennifer, his business partner, her voice brittle with both urgency and uncertainty. "We need answers, Michael. The investors are losing faith. If we don't present a new project soon." Her words hung in the air, suffocating and demanding. But instead of retreating into his habit of evasion, he felt the adrenaline course through his veins. "I have something," he said, his voice confident, firm. "Let us meet today. I'm proposing something new. A project that could align our goals with social impact." Jennifer's silence on the line felt like an eternity before she spoke again, skepticism lacing her tone. "Are you sure? We need something solid, Michael." "I'm sure. Trust me on this," he urged, feeling the conviction swell inside him. Finally, he had a purpose beyond his own survival. Later that day, as he met Jennifer in the office conference room, Michael's heart raced with both excitement and fear. He laid out the vision he'd crafted with Sarah. This proposal was now intertwined with his ambition, yet also with her aspiration for a future. As he spoke passionately about the designs and their potential impact, he could see Jennifer's skepticism slowly fading away. But as her brow unfurrowed, a new thought echoed in his mind: the risk of failure loomed larger than the ambition for success. What if the investors rejected the idea, not recognizing its potential? As they concluded their meeting, Jennifer appeared contemplative. "This could work. But it hinges on Sarah, right? We need her on board." His stomach dropped. The unanticipated reminder of Sarah's precarious situation made him question everything. In the haze of hope, had he forgotten that she was still battling the shadows of her past, facing another conundrum? He pondered deep down, would he push Sarah to embrace this newfound dream, risking her return to a life that sought to cage her? The moment of truth bore down heavily upon him. As he prepared to meet Sarah again, adrenaline surged through him, a potent mix of anxiety and courage. Would he convince her to bet on a future worth fighting for, or would he inadvertently drive her towards the safety they both yearned to escape? The answer lingered just out of reach, and it filled him with both determination and dread. As the sun sank toward the horizon, Michael knew that soon, they would face the forces trying to keep them down, and the path toward a new destiny was about to unfold. The city lights flickered like distant stars as Michael made his way toward Sarah's studio. Each step felt significant, weighted with the gravity of his vision and the profound implications it held for both of them. The streets hummed with life, yet Michael felt like a solitary island, besieged by doubts that threatened to pull him under. Was he forcing Sarah into a reality she was not ready to embrace? As he entered the studio, the vibrant energy in the room enveloped him, yet the palpable tension weighed heavy in the air. Sarah was focused on her latest design, a piece that felt raw and personal, echoing her struggles and aspirations. She looked up, those bright eyes reflecting a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "Michael," she said quietly, a smile attempting to bridge the gap between them. "Sarah," he replied, placing the stack of papers, a tangible manifestation of his dreams, on the table between them. "I want to share something that could change everything for us." Her gaze flicked to the documents, then back to him, but he caught a flash of fear. "What is it?" Taking a deep breath, he explained the proposal he'd crafted, an opportunity for her to lead a project that integrated her creative insights with their vision. "Imagine this, shelter designs that don't just serve a purpose but tell a story, inspire lives, and challenge the norms." The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Michael watched Sarah process his words, her brow furrowing slightly. "It's ambitious," she finally said, skepticism threading her tone. But what if it fails? What if it puts us both at risk? Her concerns cut deeper than he anticipated. It wasn't just the project on the line but the delicate thread of their shared journey. I understand your fears, but consider the alternative. Stagnation. Simply making do with what we've been handed. That's easier said than done, isn't it? She challenged, and he could see the conflict shimmer in her eyes. He sensed her apprehension the way the shadows of her past still loomed over her, threatening to suffocate her burgeoning dreams. Yes, it is, he responded sharply, a flicker of frustration bleeding into his voice. But I can't accept a life of regrets. We've faced enough already. Don't you want to break free from those chains? The tension shifted in the room, stretching between their ambitions and fears. Sarah's posture softened. You really believe in this? I do, Michael affirmed, feeling the heat of conviction rise within him. We can challenge the world and, in doing so, find our own salvation. She blinked, considering him, then began to nod slowly. Okay. Let's say I'm on board. We have to present a united front to Jennifer and the investors. They'll want to see both of us committed to this vision. Relief surged through him but was swiftly accompanied by dread. What if their collaboration failed? What if the investors rejected their proposal outright? Each feasibility question was like a brick added to his growing wall of anxiety. I'll do everything I can to make it work, he promised, though uncertainty seeped into his thoughts. As they exchanged ideas, newfound energy sparked between them, illuminating possibilities that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. An unspoken bond began to form, grounded in trust and mutual aspiration. They were stepping closer to a cliff together, ready to leap, yet the question remained, would they both land safely, or would they fall? As the evening faded, Michael felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. Would they be able to convince the investors to take a risk on their vision? More importantly, could he protect Sarah from the dangers of ambition? The challenge before them was monumental, yet for Michael, the stakes were all too personal. With a determined breath, he looked at Sarah, a sense of purpose igniting within him. Let us prepare ourselves for this, he said. But first, I need you to tell me everything about your vision. Your truth fuels this project. The room fell silent once more, the weight of his request hanging thick in the air. Would she share her deepest fears and aspirations, or would she retreat from the challenge ahead? The moment of revelation felt imminent, and Michael held his breath, knowing something crucial was about to emerge. The silence in the studio was punctuated only by the soft hum of machines and the distant chirp of crickets outside. It felt as if the world had paused, as if even time was waiting for Sarah to respond. Michael studied her face, searching for signs of her internal struggle. He knew sharing her vision wasn't just a matter of business, it was a leap into vulnerability that could leave her exposed. Michael, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. This is hard for me. I've been holding back my ideas, my fears, because what if they're inadequate? He felt a pang of empathy. This was more than a professional crisis, it was a personal battle for her self-worth. You're not alone in this, he reassured her. We're in this together, and I believe your ideas are stronger than you realize. But his words, while comforting, couldn't fully penetrate the fortress of hesitation she had built around her aspirations. He needed to shift the focus, to draw her out of the shadows of doubt that stifled her creative spirit. Tell me your vision, imagine the designs you've sketched in your mind. I need to hear them. Slowly, she exhaled, a tentative spark igniting in her eyes. Well, I've always thought about how architecture can connect people. Designs that are not just physical structures but also emotional havens. For example, a communal space where people can gather, a sanctuary in the city. Her enthusiasm grew, and Michael felt a thrill at her words. It wasn't just about buildings to him, it was about creating places that would resonate with human experiences. That's it, he exclaimed. A sanctuary. We could incorporate elements that reflect stories, local histories, even the emotions tied to a place. As Sarah's ideas flowed, Michael's own doubts began to dissipate. They brainstormed together, their shared energy building into a creative tempest that felt almost electric. Yet, beneath this current of excitement lay a gnawing fear that he would fail her, that their dreams might not manifest as expected. Hours passed, and their vision began to crystallize into something tangible, yet Michael couldn't shake the looming apprehension. As Sarah animatedly sketched her ideas, he realized this moment was pivotal not just for their project, but also for both of them as individuals. Would he step up and take the risks necessary to propel them forward, despite the uncertainty? "Sarah," he said, interrupting her flow, "what do you want from this project, beyond the designs?" She paused, her pencil hovering above the paper, caught in a moment of deep introspection. "I want to feel like my work matters. That it can spark change. But I also fear getting attached. What if it doesn't succeed?" Michael could sense her struggle with vulnerability and courage. "But what if it does? What if this is the beginning of something transformative not just for us, but for others?" For a heartbeat, her gaze met his, a flicker of understanding passing between them. This was more than a project, it was their chance to confront their deepest doubts, their failures, and emerge stronger. "Okay," she whispered, the resolve hardening in her voice. "Let's lay everything on the table with Jennifer and the investors. No holding back." He felt a swell of pride mixed with anxiety at her commitment. Each step was going to push them further into the unknown, but he was ready to embrace that insecurity. They could be raw and real with the world. As they prepared to finalize their pitch, Michael's phone buzzed, an unexpected distraction. Glancing at the screen, his heart skipped. It was from Jennifer, asking for a last-minute meeting to finalize arrangements before the pitch. Could this be a game changer, or was it an ominous sign of things to come? "Let's get ready," he urged Sarah, who looked equally alarmed and intrigued. "Our time for change is coming sooner than expected." Together, they exchanged determined looks, bracing for the imminent challenge that could make or break everything they had worked for. The moment hung heavy in the air, charged with uncertainty and potential. As they gathered their notes and sketches, Michael couldn't help but wonder, was this their shot at redemption, or was the universe testing their resolve? As the tension simmered, one question loomed larger than all the others: would they rise together, or would the pressure of the moment cause their carefully crafted dream to crumble? The moment they entered the dimly lit conference room, Michael felt the weight of expectation settle on his shoulders. The imposing table, surrounded by decision-makers whose gazes pierced through him, brought a prickling unease. Jennifer appeared at the head of the table, her expression unreadable, a blend of professional detachment and curiosity that both intimidated and inspired him. "Thanks for coming on short notice," she began, her voice crisp and authoritative. "I wanted to gather some final thoughts before we present your vision. It's crucial we align on what we want to communicate about the project." Michael's eyes darted to Sarah, who stood beside him, her fingers anxiously fidgeting with the edge of her sketchpad. He could feel her tension radiating as they faced their audience, which included seasoned investors who had seen countless pitches, each more polished and practiced than the last. This was their moment of truth, yet here they were raw, vulnerable, and uncertain. As Jennifer detailed the agenda, Michael mentally prepared his points, but doubt snuck in, gnawing away at his confidence. Had they done enough? Were their ideas strong enough to compete in this ruthless world? Just as he wrestled with his thoughts, he noticed Sarah's breathing steadying. She was centering herself, a flicker of determination igniting in her eyes. "Jennifer, could we start with our vision laid out clearly?" Sarah interjected softly, finding her voice amid the tension. "I think it's essential the investors understand not only what we envision but also why it matters." Surprised by her boldness, Michael felt a rush of admiration mixed with relief. It was as if she had reached through the fog of his doubt and pulled him back into the light. He nodded, supporting her instinct. A moment later, they were laying out their vision, Sarah sharing her concept of architectural sanctuaries that foster connection and belonging. Her words flowed smoothly, painting vivid pictures in the minds of their audience. With each statement, the tension slowly began to dissipate. Michael chimed in, weaving details of how local stories and emotional histories could transform spaces into more than just structures. They became living embodiments of community perseverance. As they spoke, the atmosphere shifted. The investors leaned in, captivated by the passionate energy radiating from both of them. But as they engaged with the room, Michael felt the undertow of apprehension rise again. What if the investors did not share their vision? What if they rejected it? After an exhilarating exchange of ideas, one of the investors, his brow furrowed, asked a tough question: what happens if you don't succeed? How will you handle the fallout? That piercing inquiry stung like a thorn. Michael could hear his heartbeat echoing in his ears, but he sensed Sarah's anxious energy morphing into resolution. She answered with an unwavering voice. If we don't succeed, it will only teach us more about ourselves and our craft. Failure isn't the end, it's a stepping stone towards understanding how to create better, more impactful spaces. Her words struck a powerful chord. He saw a flicker of recognition pass over the investor's face. This was more than a business proposition to Sarah, it was a declaration of intent to embrace growth, regardless of the outcome. It was a message he needed to embody as well. The question of failure, the haunting dread of setbacks, was something he had danced around for too long. When Michael took his turn to speak, he focused on a personal narrative. Striving for excellence is our purpose, he began, not just for ourselves, but to provide a voice for those who have been overlooked in these discussions. I refuse to shy away from the risks because those risks reflect a deeper desire to contribute meaningfully. As he spoke, he felt a surge of clarity washing over him, cleansing the last remnants of self-doubt. His own fears about inadequacy began to dissolve in the warmth of shared ambition. They were in this together, and no matter what happened in this room, their partnership was resilient. But just as the energy reached a hopeful crescendo, the door opened, revealing a shadowy silhouette that made his heart race. What new challenge lurked behind that door? Would it signal another obstacle in their journey, testing their resolve once more? The stakes were about to rise again. Michael stared as the door creaked open, a surge of adrenaline coursing through his veins. The silhouette stepped into the dim light, revealing a tall figure with an air of authority. It was Jacob, the senior partner at the firm. His reputation for hardball negotiations and ruthless assessments preceded him. Jacob's expression was inscrutable, as if he were assessing the combined effort of Michael and Sarah in a single glance. The tension in the room crackled, almost palpable. I just arrived from another meeting, he announced, his tone clipped. I had to see this for myself. Michael's heart raced, visions of their hard work crashing down in a wave of scrutiny. Would this be the moment that tilted the scales? Thank you for your time, Jennifer said, attempting to rein in the situation. Michael, Sarah, we were just going through your vision. Jacob cut her off, his eyes focused solely on Michael. I've heard your ideas, but I'm not convinced. What makes your project more than just a dream? What guarantees can you offer us? The weight of that question weighed heavily on Michael's chest. It wasn't merely an inquiry, it felt like a challenge, a gauntlet thrown. This was his moment, the embodiment of every fear he had yet to confront. He could feel the room's collective breath held, waiting for his response. Drawing on the steadying mantra of Sarah's previous words, he focused inward. Dreams, in this context, are not enough, he began, grounding his voice. They're the foundation, but what we build on that foundation is crucial. We have researched demographic trends, engaged with community feedback, and piloted smaller projects that have already shown success. Our work is rooted in practical strategies that prioritize adaptability in changing environments. Jacob tilted his head slightly, and Michael seized the opportunity. He continued passionately. Furthermore, we're prepared for failure. We embrace it. Each setback will provide us invaluable insights, allowing us to iterate and grow. This isn't merely a project, this is a commitment to a continuous cycle of improvement. Michael could see Jacob's brow furrow deeper. The challenge loomed, but so did the potential for acceptance. He turned to Sarah, who seemed to be recalling their earlier discussions about resilience and growth. Perhaps this was the moment for both of them to marry their strengths and advocate for their shared vision. Sarah's insights on emotional impact have been pivotal, he added, casting an encouraging glance her way. We don't just build structures, we craft narratives. Each site tells a story, and we intend to engage the communities we serve throughout the process. Before Jacob could respond, Sarah leaned forward, her voice firm. We've witnessed the power that authentic engagement can unlock in communities. People are not just looking for places, they're searching for connection, a sense of belonging. This is our opportunity to build spaces that resonate. Michael felt the energy shift, a palpable crackle of inspiration igniting the room. They were two forces aligned, each amplifying the other's message. Jacob studied them, the corners of his mouth twitching slightly at the edges. However, the air in the room remained thick with anticipation. Would Jacob's approval bring the validation they sought, or would it merely sour in the face of additional critique? The clock is ticking, Jacob finally said, his voice slicing through the tension. You have your work cut out for you. Change is notoriously slow. I want to see how this unfolds through your realization process over the next quarter. If you can deliver results that touch on both creativity and sustainability, he paused, letting the weight of those words hang in the air. Then you might earn my backing. Relief washed over Michael, but it was quick to mingle with anticipation. It wasn't over yet. He had to prove their vision beyond mere words. With a shared glance of determination at Sarah, they both understood the next chapter of their journey awaited a pivotal challenge, keeping the momentum and battling not just for approval, but for their shared belief in the transformative power of their project. What awaited them in the coming quarter could embolden their resolve or shatter their dreams once more. Would they rise or fall under the pressure of expectation? Michael's days became a relentless whirlwind filled with planning sessions, sleepless nights, and the weight of impending deadlines pressing down on his shoulders. With every sunrise, he felt the urgency of Jacob's words echo in his mind, a constant reminder of the stakes. Sarah was often by his side, offering support and insights. Together, they were determined to navigate the complex terrain ahead. In those early mornings, when the office was still quiet and the city outside the window began to stir, Michael found his most profound thoughts illuminating his path. He would sip his coffee slowly, wrestling with strategies that felt at once bold and frightening. He realized that this project was never about simply securing Jacob's approval, it was about affirming his own vision, understanding that doubts paralleled his potential. It was a fragile but critical balance that required constant recalibration that he immersed himself in research, synthesizing community feedback mechanisms and analyzing which aspects could resonate best with their intended audience. It became evident that the emotional elements Sarah spoke of were not just abstract concepts but tangible parts of the fabric of their proposal. Each spreadsheet he created was laced with humanity stories from those who would inhabit the spaces, the hopes they had, and the realities they faced, but amidst the numbers and facts, Michael wrestled with self-doubt. What if his calculations were off? What if they faced an unforeseen hurdle in implementation? The specter of having to explain failure loomed, especially to Jacob. He could almost feel the sharp contours of disappointment etched on the senior partner's face, a chilling visual that persisted in the quiet corners of his mind. To combat this, he kept a notepad filled with reminders of past successes, whispered words of encouragement from Sarah, and affirmations that grounded him. It reminded him of who he was becoming, not merely a cog in the corporate machine, but a leader capable of orchestrating change. Each time he revisited that notepad, the contours of his fear softened, replaced by a resolute awareness of his developing capabilities. As weeks passed, their weekly meetings with Jacob turned from anxiety-ridden presentations to collaborative discussions. Michael found himself gradually shedding the fears that had once paralyzed him. He not only communicated their strategies clearly but also began to anticipate Jacob's concerns with solutions preemptively suggested. One afternoon, as the three reviewed progress reports, Jacob's expression shifted, a flicker of respect crossing his features. "I see your passion," he admitted. "But passion alone won't carry the weight. Show me the numbers after your implementation phase. Make this a true reflection of your construct and not just a dream. For a fleeting moment, Michael felt euphoria wash over him. Validation was infiltrating the boundaries of their hard work, yet the thrill of success wedged itself into the more substantial reality of further expectations. He understood now, Jacob's insistence wasn't merely callous, it was a push for him to refine his capacity to deliver tangible results. However, this revelation ignited a conflict deep within him. Was he still holding back certain aspects of himself in fear of overreach? Had he actively chosen not to stretch beyond his comfort zone? Each week, he felt a visceral tug, the need to step further into uncertainty, to assume risks that truly embodied what he believed their project could become. The next few days became a quest of self-exploration. He pondered whether he could reveal deeper layers of ambition, not just to impress Jacob, but to truly challenge himself. How could he synthesize everything he had learned into a clear, cohesive vision that connected his mission with his potential? The moment had arrived for him to confront his hesitation, to bring a bolder version of himself into the conversations ahead. And then it hit him: he needed something that would serve as a testament to this journey, a demonstration of their collective insights through a calculated risk. That he picked up the notepad and grabbed a pen, ready to sketch out a daring new element to their proposal that would channel his deeper belief in their mission. But as creative thoughts flowed onto the page, a reminder clattered in his mind: risking failure might come with its own price. What if Jacob rejected this bold concept? Would it upend all they had worked toward, or could it become their greatest chance at redemption? In that moment, the tension between fear and ambition heightened, as Michael stood on the precipice of a decision that could redefine everything. Would Michael take the plunge, revealing his true potential, or hold back and play it safe? The coming meeting would not just showcase their project, it would unveil not just their vision, but who he was becoming as a leader. The meeting approached with a palpable intensity, and Michael felt his heart thumping against his chest. With each tick of the clock echoing through the conference room, the enormity of what he intended to present loomed over him. He had resolved to risk it all, but the enormity of his plans weighed heavily on his consciousness, swirling with uncertainty and potential repercussions. In the days leading up to the meeting, Michael threw himself into preparation, immersing himself in data that supported his bold new vision. He scrutinized market trends, scoured case studies, and juxtaposed competitors' successes against potential pitfalls. This was not just a project, it was his manifesto, a culmination of his personal growth and professional aspirations. The night before the meeting, he found himself swimming in thoughts about his past fears. He recalled the moments when self-doubt had rendered him inactive, frozen on a precipice of choice. But now, he stood at the edge ready to leap, a stark contrast to the Michael inhabited during the early days of the project. He was beginning to grasp what it truly meant to embrace discomfort, a realization that seemed to unlock a door deep within himself. When Sarah entered the meeting room the next day, her eyes mirrored the excitement and anxiety swirling within him. "You ready for this?" she asked, her tone infused with both encouragement and concern. "More than ever," Michael replied, though the tremor in his voice suggested otherwise. He drew a deep breath, grounding himself in the journey that had brought him to this moment. Every spreadsheet, every discussion with Sarah and Jacob, had reinforced the single narrative he needed to convey. As Jacob settled into his chair, all eyes turned to Michael. Clenching his notepad, the pages now colored with sketches and statistics, he felt the undeniable urge to find his authentic voice. The too familiar insecurities clawed at him, but he maintained a firm grip on his resolve. This was his time to shine or to fail spectacularly. "I appreciate the trust you've placed in me so far," he began, glancing at Jacob, whose expression was a stoic mask. "But we're at a critical juncture. I'm presenting not just ideas here but an evolution of our project." As Michael elaborated on the innovative strategy, he gestured toward the visual aids he had painstakingly crafted. He articulated vivid narratives of community engagement, of how the project would not only withstand challenges but thrive in new contexts. The emotional resonance he had wrestled with now flowed freely, underscoring the facts and figures that supported his vision. He could feel Jacob's gaze, sharp but curious. When he reached the pivotal element, the bold new concept, a hush fell over the room. "I'm proposing that we take a risk on a grassroots initiative, one that engages our community in a way that reflects the very essence of our goals. This isn't just a project, it's a movement, he asserted, allowing the weight of his conviction to hang in the air. For a brief moment, Michael could see Jacob's shifting demeanor, the flicker of realization crossing his face. He spoke up, his tone an intriguing combination of skepticism and intrigue. "This is ambitious, Michael. You understand the stakes if it doesn't work out, right?" "Absolutely," Michael replied, feeling the tension mount. "But without taking risks, we're only limiting our potential." The room felt electric, the tension thick as he imprinted the truth upon his own heart. As Jacob leaned back, he contemplated, and for Michael, every second felt like a lifetime. Convincing Jacob would mean navigating not just a project but the very framework of who he was becoming in his role: capable, visionary, and brave. But just as he was catching a glimpse of success, a new thought clawed its way to the surface. What if this vision unleashed aspects of Jacob that were infinitely less supportive? What if this leap into the unknown endangered everything? Suddenly, Michael found himself trapped within the duality of hope and fear again. "Be prepared to defend your choice." "Michael," Jacob finally said, the corners of his lips curling briefly, though his tone was serious. And as Michael held Jacob's gaze, he knew the time had come to face the potential fallout. This was no longer just about the proposal but a deeper confrontation with himself. The meeting had taken on a life of its own, and he now stood at the intersection of revelation and reckoning. What consequences awaited him if this gamble didn't pay off? Would he lose the newfound respect he had worked so hard to cultivate, or would he emerge transformed from this crucible of risk? In that moment, the true test of his leadership beckoned, urging him to stay the course as uncertainty surged around him. The next phase of his journey had begun, but at what cost? The silence in the room stretched uncomfortably, hanging heavily before Jacob finally broke it, signaling a shift in the tide. Michael could feel an undercurrent of doubt threading through the atmosphere, taut and persistent. Each heartbeat echoed a primal instinct to protect what he had carefully built, to shield his vision from the unseen adversary lurking within discussions of risk and reward. He understood what Jacob was asking, but it burned like acid. Defend your choice. Not just an idea, it was a challenge to his very core, his worth as a leader. Michael drew in a breath, fighting to anchor himself in the suffocating moment. "I've seen the impact of playing it safe," he replied, battling the tremor in his voice. "When we hold back, we hold ourselves back, too. This isn't about maintaining the status quo, it's about breaking new ground." Damning thoughts invaded his psyche, the what-ifs, the unresolved doubts. Every confrontation with Jacob felt like a dissection of his own insecurities. Would Jacob see his passion as recklessness or innovation? Michael grappled with the concept of being an outlier in the organization, cultivating discomfort that could ultimately lead to growth. "Look, I get it," Jacob sighed, leaning forward, the tension in his shoulders easing just slightly. "But changing direction isn't easy, and I need evidence that this can succeed. I can't back you without data." "Respectfully, Jacob," Michael countered, "evidence is built through action. If we wait for absolute certainty, we'll always miss opportunities to lead." He could hear the conviction in his own voice, a depth and clarity that had been absent in past meetings. For the first time, he embraced a fearless drop into the potential chaos ahead. As the discussion unfolded, Jacob revealed his concerns about resources, stakeholder approval, and the operational shifts that might be required. Each point felt like a fresh wave crashing against Michael's determination. Yet, beneath that pressure, he sensed a flicker igniting a realization that he possessed the tools to circumvent these obstacles. What if we aim for a pilot program? A controlled test that can reassure stakeholders without exposing us to catastrophic failure? Sarah chimed in, eyes bright with belief in Michael's vision. A spark flared inside him. "Yes. We can create a prototype." A wash of adrenaline surged through him, sending a jolt of energy into his words. "We deploy a small-scale version of the initiative, collect feedback, and refine the strategy before scaling up. That way we manage the risks while showing commitment to innovation. It aligns with our growth goals and allows us to take tangible steps." Michael felt the shift in the room, a palpable release, the tether snapping as momentum began to build around his approach. The awakening of his authority began to take root, grounded not in bravado but in the realization of his capabilities. He was not merely a cog in a corporate machine, he was the architect of a potential transformation. "Now you're thinking," Jacob said, the skepticism in his gaze softening. "But let us get real here, Michael. There will be pushback. Not everyone will be on board with your vision." "Let them push back," Michael replied, his confidence solidifying. "It'll give us the chance to refine the strategy with their concerns in mind. Leadership isn't about pleasing everyone, it's about carving a path forward, even through dissent. And I'm ready for that." His resolve crystallized. This was a momentous step in his professional journey. The crowded conference room, once an arena of confrontation, transformed into a launch pad for his vision and evolution of both the project and himself. As the discussion wound down, Michael felt the safe embrace of certainty washing over him. Standing at the intersection of courage and conviction, he understood he had crossed a threshold. Yet beneath that triumph, a hidden apprehension lingered. What if they still rejected his proposal? What if the hardened hearts he sought to convince remained unreachable? The stakes were dire, and the question peered at him like a specter. As he prepared to leave the meeting room, the weight of his pursuit settled into the marrow of his bones. He was determined to rise above the odds, but the reality of potential failure buzzed in his mind, beeping insistently, refusing to be ignored. Could he validate his own leadership and vision, or would the very initiative that promised to elevate him become his undoing? The answer loomed just beyond his grasp, unnerving and invigorating all at once, casting a shadow over the dawn of his ambitions. Michael stood at the helm of his future, adrenaline coursing through him after the recent upheaval of fear and ambition. The months leading up to this moment had tested his spirit and resolve. But in the crucible of uncertainty, he had unearthed the leader within himself, both for his sake and for Sarah's. With clear determination, Michael began to implement the prototype they had envisioned during their last meeting. The project was now a tangible manifestation of their dreams, a community space designed to foster connection and continuity. The initial design carried a spirit of harnessing human stories, transcending mere aesthetics to create living narratives. As the construction commenced, Michael felt each heartbeat solidifying his purpose. He was not just executing a project, he was actively constructing a legacy. Weekly updates with Jacob became sessions of collaborative growth rather than mere accountability checks. With Sarah consistently pushing the design boundaries and offering fresh insights, their partnership flourished in a symbiotic dance, both rooting for each other's success while honing their united ambition. Over time, community feedback started trickling in, testimonials from potential users who recognized the emotional resonance of the designs. Each comment lifted Michael's spirits, reinforcing that his vision was both valuable and necessary. The collaboration proved its merit. People were beginning to connect with the integrity of the space and the narrative it promised. Transformationally, this venture emerged as a beacon of hope for those who had previously felt voiceless. However, the true test arrived during the final presentations to irrigate the funding for scaling the project. Michael recalled the weight of previous meetings and knew the stakes were significantly higher. Those moments fueled him not with trepidation but with resolute confidence in what they had built. "We're ready," he told Sarah before the meeting. "This is our opportunity to show what we can create together." As they laid out their findings and the riveting community reaction to the prototype, he felt the atmosphere shift among the investors. What once felt like a battleground had transformed into a cooperative tapestry of shared vision. He had not just presented a project, he demonstrated a commitment to harnessing failure as a stepping stone to success. Even Jacob's demeanor reflected an openness to possibility. "Your approach has recalibrated my expectations," Jacob remarked, genuine appreciation woven through his words. "Presenting a prototype that engages the community provides credence to the foundation you've built. It's clear not just what it represents, but how it embodies purpose." Michael felt the corroboration wrap around him like a warm embrace. Reversal from predecessor doubt anchored him as he navigated this newfound esteem. "This is just the beginning," he replied, the buoyancy of gratitude bursting forth. Engagement will continue to deepen as we expand. Understanding our audience is only the first step to unlocking true innovation. As the meeting concluded and applause rang through the room, a palpable energy electrified Michael's system. They were embarking on a journey not just to create spaces, but to construct a better understanding of connection, especially for those brushed aside previously. Sarah met his eye, a knowing smile flashing across her face. Together, they had carved a path beyond self-doubt and into shared triumph. Months later, as the project gained traction and momentum, Michael stood at the community site, surveying the buzzing activity around him. Families gathered, new stories began to unfold, and the space breathed life into the very fabric of the neighborhood. He thought back to the empty spaces of his past, a stark contrast with the vibrant community around him now. Wrapped in solid confidence, he recalled the girl who had ignited the spark of resurgence in him. Not just as a leader of a company, but as a catalyst of change. He had conquered not only the fears that once loomed large over his aspirations but also forged a remarkable partnership that had set both him and Sarah on a trajectory none could have predicted. As people laughed and families found solace in the space they created together, Michael understood his journey was far from complete. Yet every heartbeat reverberated with fulfillment. He had accomplished something far greater than a business revival. He had transformed lives and redefined purpose, and so, standing proudly in that sanctuary, he vowed to keep pushing, to keep cultivating spaces that told stories and echoed resilience, both for himself and the communities he aimed to empower. This was his legacy. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.